At the cruise control set on the interstate. When I realized the brakes were dead. No matter how hard I stomped on the pedal. The speedometer stayed locked at 65 miles per hour. To my right was a massive 18-wheeler. To my left, in the passing lane, was a white sedan matching the semi's speed, boxing me in like a rolling roadblock. My wife Sarah was in the back seat feeding our baby Lily some puffs. She noticed. We were getting dangerously close to the white car's bumper. "Mike, why aren't you slowing down?" she asked, panic creeping into her voice. I looked in the rearview mirror, meeting her eyes. My throat felt like I'd swallowed broken glass. "Sarah, listen to me. Tighten your seatbelt. Hold on to the handle. And I love you." I laid on the horn. Sarah's eyes went wide. She knew the guy in the white sedan ahead was cruising at maybe 50. Completely oblivious or just an asshole. I hate campers in the left lane. I kept the horn blaring. Finally, the white sedan sped up a little. I started to breathe again. But then the nightmare scenario happened. His brake lights flared red. There was nothing in front of him. The road was clear. He was brake checking me because my honking annoyed him. But I couldn't stop. Crunch. My SUV slammed into his rear bumper. The impact shook us violently. Sarah screamed, grabbing the handle. I white-knuckled the steering wheel. If I swerved, that semi-truck next to us would turn us into scrap metal. Luckily, the guy in the white sedan had only meant to scare me. When he felt the hit, he panicked, floored the gas and shot forward, putting distance between us. We cleared the semi. The white sedan's window rolled down. A man's arm hung out waving frantically, followed by a middle finger. He started drifting into the right lane, trying to force me to pull over. Sarah rolled down her window, screaming against the wind. "The brakes are gone. We can't stop." But at highway speeds, the wind rush swallowed her words. Seeing me drive past him, the white sedan floored it and caught up. The guy was furious. He was the one camping in the passing lane. He was the one who brake checked me. But now he acted like the victim. He flipped me off again. His face twisted in rage. He gunned his engine, swerving in front of me again. This lunatic was trying to play games on the highway. Unstable drivers are just grim reapers looking for innocent families. The moment his bumper cleared my hood, I rammed him again. Boom. Another collision. His rear bumper crumpled. My car lurched, losing balance. I gripped the wheel, sweat stinging my eyes. The faster we went, the deadlier this got. One slip and we'd flip. "Why is he doing this?" Sarah sobbed from the back. "What is wrong with him?" I wanted to rip the guy out of his car and tear him apart. My wife, my child. They were everything to me. We were hanging by a thread. And this guy didn't think he was wrong. He probably thought I was raging and trying to hit and run. Sure enough, the white sedan chased us down again. His trunk was smashed in, but he wasn't done. I was stuck at 65. He floored it, cutting in front of me. My stomach dropped. His sunroof opened, a hand popped out holding a large fast food bag. He tossed it. A supersized soda. And a bag of greasy fries exploded against my windshield. Brown liquid and grease smeared across the glass, blinding me instantly. I hit the wipers, but it just smeared the grease into an opaque, oily film. We were driving blind. The oil smear was getting worse with every wipe. I had to turn them off and let the wind dry the gunk. Just enough so I could see vague shapes through the mess. Sarah was shaking, terrified. But she had her phone out dialing 911. I'm on I-95 with my husband. Our brakes failed, she screamed into the phone. There's a maniac attacking us. He's throwing things at our car. She switched to speaker mic. Dispatch needs to know where we are. Just past the exit for Georgetown heading south. I yelled. Vehicle description. The operator asked calmly. Matt Gray, Explorer license plate 7. 2, C. 3, 2. I said we can't stop. We are closing the on-ramps ahead and clearing the lanes. Rolling roadblocks are en route. Can you see the aggressor's plate? No, I can't see anything clearly. He's right next to me. Understood. Maintain your course. Help is coming. I swallowed hard and asked the only question that mattered. How far to the nearest runaway truck ramp? Silence on the line for a few seconds. 50 miles. We will do our best to escort you. 50 miles. That was basically 2 counties away. My heart sank. The white sedan was parallel to me again. The driver was screaming obscenities. Keeping pace so I couldn't move over to the emergency lane. Mike, Sarah said. Unbuckling her seatbelt. Did you turn on the lane assist? Yes. Get back here. Switch seats with me. I looked in the mirror. Her face was tear-streaked but determined. The back seat is safer, she pleaded. Let me drive. If you die, Lily and I, we can't make it without you. You bring in the money, you have to survive. I looked at Lily. She was oblivious. Gumming on a cracker, waving her little hands. Say Dada, I whispered. Forcing a smile. She hadn't said it yet. If today was the day I died, I wanted that to be the last thing I heard. Lily just giggled. Sarah tugged at my shirt. Mike, move. Don't use the baby as an excuse. I choked out. Listen to me, Sarah. I never believed in an afterlife. But if this goes south, I'll find you in the next one. Sarah froze. My heart hammered against my ribs. The white sedan was making a move again. Was accelerating on the right. He rolled his window down again. He was holding something heavy. A tire iron, a wrench. Before I could react, he hurled it. Crash. My passenger side window shattered. Sarah screamed, a sound of pure agony that will haunt me forever. The heavy steel tool smashed through the glass, carrying enough momentum at highway speeds to punch through the seat. It slammed into Sarah's shoulder in the back. I whipped my head around. Sarah was pinned to the seat, clutching her shoulder, blood pouring out. Data. Lily shrieked, no longer giggling but terrified by the noise. A shard of flying glass had slashed her cheek. Blood was running down her tiny face. The rage that filled me then was cold and black. Kill him. That was the only thought. Sarah, pale and trembling, yanked the tool out of the seat and threw herself over Lily. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. Mike. She gasped. Lily's cut. There's glass. I can't tell how deep. I looked at the rearview mirror. My wife pierced, my daughter bleeding. Minutes ago we were a happy family. Now we were a slaughterhouse on wheels. If I survived this, I was going to kill that driver. Wind whistled through the broken window, blowing shards of glass into the cabin. I had to be rational. I had to bury the rage to save them. The white sedan pulled ahead again. The driver holding his hand out the window, giving me the finger. An idea formed. A dangerous, crazy idea. He likes being in front, fine. I'll use him. If I tailgate him, he clears the road for me. If he brakes, I ram him. His car has brakes, can use his weight and his brakes to stop mine. I could push him into the guardrail. Use him as a buffer to slow us down. I turned the wheel, drifting directly behind him. He didn't expect that. He swerved left. I swerved left. He went right. I shadowed him. Sarah saw what I was doing. Clutching her bleeding shoulder, she whispered, "Day on in, Mike." Suddenly, the white sedan jerked hard to the left, almost hitting the median. I reacted instantly, swerving with him. That's when I saw it, a massive wooden crate in the middle of the lane. Probably fell off a truck. He waited until the last second to swerve, hoping I'd hit it and die. Cold sweat drenched my back. This guy was actively trying to murder us. I stayed glued to his bumper. He realized he couldn't shake me, so he started to slow down. Since I couldn't brake, I slammed into his rear again. Metal screeched. I kept the wheel straight, letting his brakes do the work for both of us. My speedometer dropped. 65. 55, 50. It was working. I planned to grind us both into the guardrail once we were slow enough. But then he floored it. He broke contact, shooting forward and veering away. My car surged back to its preset speed. "Brace yourselves," I roared. I yanked the wheel toward the shoulder. I couldn't let us hit a tree at 50 miles per hour. Dead on, I had to side-swipe the rail. My SUV slammed into the metal guardrail. Sparks flew like fireworks. A screech of tearing metal was deafening. I wrestled the wheel, trying to keep the friction high without flipping over. We plowed through the rail. We hit the dirt embankment. Boom. The airbags deployed, punching me in the chest. Dust and smoke filled the cabin. My vision went black for a second. I gasped for air, but my chest felt like it had caved in. "Sarah, Lily." I wheezed. Sarah was slumped over unconscious. Lily was screaming from her car seat, her face a mask of red. My door was jammed. My legs were pinned under the dashboard. Smoke was starting to curl up from the hood. I saw a movement outside. The white sedan had stopped 100 yards up. The driver got out. He didn't run over to help. Pulled out his phone. He walked toward my wrecked car, recording a video. "Look at this idiot," he narrated to his screen. "Road raging on the interstate, rear-ended me twice. Tried to run me off the road. Now look at him. Got what he deserved." He walked up to my shattered window, "Say, cheese, asshole." The smoke from the deployed airbags smelled like burning plastic and gunpowder. It hung in the cabin, a toxic fog that stung my eyes and coated the back of my throat. I was pinned, my legs crushed beneath the crumpled dashboard, but the agonizing pressure in my lower body barely registered. All I could hear was Lily's shrill, breathless screaming and the unnatural, terrifying silence coming from Sarah in the back seat. And then there was this guy. He stood outside my shattered window, the camera lens of his phone shoved into the space where the glass used to be. His face was twisted into a smug, adrenaline-fueled sneer. He was wearing a crisp polo shirt, completely untouched, entirely disconnected from the slaughterhouse he had just created. "Say cheese, asshole," he repeated, his voice dripping with venomous glee. The cold, black rage that had taken root in my chest erupted. It bypassed pain. It bypassed reason. With a guttural roar that tore my vocal cords, I twisted my upper body. The fractured ribs on my left side ground together, sending a blinding flash of white-hot agony through my vision, but I didn't stop. I lunged across the center console, my right arm shooting through the broken window. He didn't expect it. He thought I was broken. He thought I was done. My hand clamped around his throat. His eyes bugged out, the smug smile vanishing instantly. His phone dropped, clattering against the twisted metal of my door. I squeezed with everything I had, my fingers digging into his windpipe. I wanted to crush it. I wanted to feel the cartilage snap. I pulled him downward, slamming his face into the jagged remnants of the window glass. He shrieked, a high-pitched, pathetic sound, as the safety glass sliced into his cheek. He thrashed wildly, bringing his hands up to claw at my arm. He was stronger than he looked, fueled by sudden, primal panic. He managed to pry my thumb back, breaking the joint with a sickening pop. My grip slipped. He tore himself away, stumbling backward into the dirt, clutching his bleeding face. He looked at the blood on his hands, then looked at me. The bravado was completely gone. He looked into the back seat, and for the first time, he seemed to process what he was looking at. He saw the tire iron embedded in the leather, pooling with dark arterial blood. He saw the motionless body of my wife. He saw my baby, her face painted in crimson. The distant, wailing shriek of sirens cut through the air. The rolling roadblocks. The police were coming. The man took one last look at me, a look of genuine terror, and sprinted back to his crumpled white sedan. He threw himself into the driver's seat, the engine screaming as he floored it, the ruined rear bumper dragging against the asphalt, sending a shower of sparks into the air as he vanished down the shoulder of the interstate. "Sarah," I choked out, spitting blood onto the steering wheel. I tried to turn around, but my spine wouldn't let me. "Sarah, please. Baby, say something." Only Lily's crying answered me. The next 40 minutes were a blur of flashing red and blue lights, the deafening mechanical bite of the jaws of life, and the frantic shouting of paramedics. They had to cut the roof off the Explorer to get Sarah out without moving her spine. When they finally lifted her onto the backboard, I saw the extent of the damage. Her skin was the color of ash. Her shirt was soaked through. A paramedic strapped a cervical collar around my neck, blocking my view. "Stay still, sir. Your femur is shattered. We're getting you out." "My wife," I wheezed, grabbing the paramedic's wrist. "My baby. The infant has superficial lacerations. She's breathing fine, heart rate is elevated but stable." "She's in the ambulance," the medic said, his voice a practiced, clinical calm. "Your wife is being airlifted to County General. We need to focus on you right now." I let go of his wrist and stared up at the gray, overcast sky. I didn't believe in God, but in that moment, as the hydraulic cutters snapped the last pillar of my car, I prayed to whatever was listening. "Take my legs. Take my life. Just let them live." The hospital was a purgatory of fluorescent lights and the smell of iodine. I was confined to a bed in the ICU, my right leg pinned with titanium rods, my ribs wrapped tightly, my right thumb in a splint. The physical pain was a dull, throbbing background noise managed by a steady drip of morphine. The psychological agony, however, was sharp and unyielding. It took 12 hours before a doctor finally came into my room. He looked exhausted, the lines around his eyes deeply etched. "Mr. Hayes. I'm Dr. Eris. I was the lead surgeon on your wife." I tried to sit up, but the restraints in my broken body pinned me down. "Is she alive?" "She is," Dr. Eris said softly, pulling up a chair. But it was incredibly close. The blunt force trauma from the steel object shattered her left scapula and fractured her clavicle. The impact caused a severe laceration to the subclavian artery. She lost a massive amount of blood before the paramedics could apply a pressure dressing. "We've managed to repair the artery and stabilize the bones with plates and screws." I let out a breath that I felt like I had been holding since the interstate. Tears spilled hot over my cheeks. "Can I see her? And Lily?" Lily was treated in pediatrics. 3 stitches on her cheek. Child Protective Services placed her with your sister, who arrived about an hour ago. "Lily is safe," Dr. Eris continued, though his tone didn't lighten. "As for Sarah, she is in a medically induced coma. The blood loss deprived her brain of oxygen for a critical window. There is also severe swelling around her cervical spine from the impact. We won't know the extent of the neurological or spinal damage until we bring her out of the coma, which won't be for at least a week. He put a hand on my shoulder. She's strong. But you need to prepare yourself for a very long road. When he left, the silence in the room became suffocating. I stared at the ceiling tiles. I counted them. I counted the perforations in the acoustic foam. I did anything to keep my mind off the image of that tire iron flying through the glass. 2 days later, Detective Miller walked into my room. He was a heavy-set man with a thick mustache and a notepad that looked too small for his hands. "Mr. Hayes. Glad to see you awake. I need to ask you about the incident on I-95. Did you catch him?" was the first thing out of my mouth. Miller sighed, pulling up a chair. "That's why I'm here. We found the white sedan abandoned behind a strip mall 3 miles from the crash site. It was reported stolen out of Richmond 2 days prior. The plates were swapped. The interior was wiped down with bleach. Whoever was driving knew exactly how to disappear." My heart hammered against my ribs. He recorded it. He was standing right outside my window with his phone. "We know," Miller said, his expression grim. "The video was posted online yesterday. Uploaded through a dark web routing network, bounced off servers in Russia and Brazil. We can't trace the IP. He posted it to a shockgore site." "So you have his face," I said, leaning forward, ignoring the fire in my leg. "No," Miller corrected softly. "The video is from his perspective. It shows you ramming him. It shows the chase. It shows your car crashing into the guardrail. And it shows you grabbing his throat through the window." He titled it, "Psychopathic SUV Driver Tries to Murder Me." It's gone viral, Mr. Hayes. People are, well, they're drawing the wrong conclusions. I stared at him, my mind short-circuiting. He threw a tire iron through my window. He almost killed my wife. My brakes failed. "We inspected the wreck of your Explorer," Miller said, looking down at his notes. "The brake lines were blown. But there's no way to definitively prove if they blew before the crash, or because you rammed his vehicle multiple times. I believe you, Mike. The 911 tape corroborates your story. But legally? The guy vanished, and the internet thinks you're the aggressor. Find him," I whispered, my voice trembling with a rage that terrified even me. "You have to find him." "We're doing everything we can," Miller said, standing up. But I saw it in his eyes. The case was already growing cold. It was a stolen car and a masked digital footprint. The police were overworked and underfunded. Unless this guy walked into a precinct and confessed, he was gone. A month passed. I was discharged, bound to a wheelchair, living in the first-floor guest room of my sister's house. Lily was terrified of loud noises. If a car honked outside, she would scream until she hyperventilated. Sarah woke up from the coma on a Tuesday. I wheeled myself into her room, my heart in my throat. She opened her eyes. She looked at me. She recognized me. But she couldn't move her legs. The spinal swelling had caused permanent ischemic damage to her lower cord. The doctors called it incomplete paraplegia. She might regain some feeling, maybe enough to stand with braces in a few years, but the vibrant, energetic woman who used to hike mountains and chase our daughter through the park was gone. Confined to a bed, racked with phantom pains, haunted by the memory of the glass shattering. I sat by her bed every day, holding her hand. She didn't talk much. The light in her eyes had been snuffed out, replaced by a hollow, vacant stare. Every night, when the house was asleep, I opened my laptop. The police had given up, but I hadn't. I had the video. It was heavily compressed, a shaky, chaotic mess of pixels, but it was all I had. I downloaded a copy before the platforms scrubbed it. I watched it frame by frame. Thousands of times. I watched my own car crash. I watched myself lunge out the window. I was looking for a mistake. People like him, arrogant, narcissistic, cruel, they always make mistakes. They think they are gods, but they are just sloppy men. It took me 3 weeks of sleepless, obsessive viewing to find it. At the very end of the video, right before he dropped his phone when I grabbed his throat, the camera swung wildly. For a fraction of a second, the lens caught the reflection of his face in the shattered glass of my side mirror. It was distorted. Warped. But it was there. I took the frames to a freelance digital forensic analyst I found online, paying him $5,000 from Lily's college fund. Clean this up, I told him over an encrypted chat. I don't care how long it takes. Unwarp it. 4 days later, he sent me an image. It was grainy, but the features were distinct. High cheekbones, a sharp jawline, close-cropped dark hair, and a very specific pair of wire-rimmed sunglasses. But more importantly, the analyst noticed something else. Check the audio, the analyst wrote. I isolated the background noise when he was walking toward your car. The interstate is loud, but he had a smartwatch on his wrist. It pinged. It's a very specific notification chime. He sent me the isolated audio file. It was a dual-tone chime. That's the VIP alert for a proprietary trading app called Apexis, the analyst explained. Only high-net-worth accounts get that specific chime. Less than 10,000 users nationwide. An arrogant guy in his mid-30s. High cheekbones. Custom sunglasses. Day trades on Apexis. Operates near Richmond, Virginia. I spent the next week cross-referencing LinkedIn, financial forums, and social media. I posed as an independent wealth manager looking to network. I sifted through hundreds of faces, thousands of profiles. I drank pot after pot of black coffee, ignoring the throbbing pain in my healing leg, ignoring the physical therapy exercises I was supposed to be doing. And then, at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, I found him. His name was Julian Croft. He was 34. He was a junior partner at a boutique private equity firm in Alexandria. His Instagram was a nauseating shrine to his own ego, pictures of him on yachts, standing next to leased sports cars, holding expensive bottles of champagne. And there was a photo of him, posted 3 weeks before the crash, wearing the exact same wire-rimmed sunglasses. I scrolled down. He lived in an upscale high-rise condo. He was single. He drove a slate gray Porsche 911. A wave of icy calm washed over me. The frantic, burning anger that had consumed me for the past 2 months suddenly crystallized into something hard, heavy, and absolute. I didn't call Detective Miller. If I gave them Julian Croft, what would happen? He was rich. He would hire a team of vicious defense attorneys. They would argue he was acting in self-defense against a madman who rammed his car. They would point to the stolen sedan and claim he wasn't driving. They would drag Sarah into court, forcing her to relive the trauma, dissecting her pain for a jury. He might do a year or 2 in a white-collar minimum security camp. That wasn't justice. That was a clerical error. Julian Croft took my wife's legs. He painted my baby's face with her own blood. He stood over my dying family and smiled for the camera. The legal system was designed to rehabilitate citizens. Julian Croft wasn't a citizen. He was a rabid dog. And there is only one way you deal with a rabid dog. It took me another month to ditch the wheelchair and graduate to a heavy steel walking cane. I told Sarah I had to go back to work, that the medical bills were piling up. It wasn't entirely a lie, but I took a leave of absence from my engineering firm. I bought a 2004 Ford F-250 diesel pickup off Craigslist using cash. It was a beat-up work truck with a heavy steel brush guard welded to the front bumper. I rented a small, cash-only storage unit in an industrial park on the edge of town, paying 6 months in advance under a fake name. Then, I began to study Julian Croft. I parked a block away from his high-rise. I watched him leave for work at 7:30 a.m. every morning. He drove aggressively, cutting off commuters, speeding through yellow lights. He was a creature of habit. Tuesday nights, he went to a high-end steakhouse. Thursday nights, he met friends at a cigar lounge. But Sunday mornings were his real weakness. Every Sunday, at 6 a.m., Julian woke up early. He took his slate gray Porsche 911 out to the Skyline Drive up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It was a winding, treacherous, two-lane road with sheer drop-offs and hairpin turns. He liked to push the car to its limits before the tourists and the park rangers clogged the roads. I drove the route in my F-250. I mapped every turn, every guardrail, every blind corner. I found a specific stretch, about 8 miles up the mountain, where the road narrowed. On the right was a sheer rock wall. On the left was a steep, 300-foot drop into a forested ravine. There were no cameras. Cell service was completely dead. It was perfect. I spent a week in the storage unit preparing my truck. I reinforced the front suspension. I welded thick steel plates behind the front grille. I removed the passenger seat and filled the cab with sandbags for extra weight. By the time I was done, the F-250 weighed close to 8,000 pounds. It was a rolling battering ram. On Saturday night, the eve of the execution, I sat by Sarah's bed. She was asleep, the rhythmic beep of her medical monitors a constant reminder of the life we had lost. I kissed her forehead. I went into Lily's room and stood over her crib. I watched her little chest rise and fall. She still had a faint, pale scar on her cheek. "I'm fixing it, baby girl," I whispered. "Daddy's fixing it." Sunday morning. 5 a.m. The air was crisp and biting, the sky a bruised purple, threatening rain. I parked the F-250 on a dirt access road just off Skyline Drive, killing the headlights. I sat in the darkness, the heavy diesel engine rumbling beneath me, vibrating up through my bad leg. I rested my steel cane against the passenger side door. On the passenger seat sat a heavy, solid steel lug wrench. At 6:15 a.m., I heard it. The high-pitched, aggressive whine of a twin-turbo flat-six engine echoing off the canyon walls. I shifted the truck into drive. I timed it perfectly. As the slate-gray Porsche roared out of a blind hairpin turn, doing easily 80 miles an hour in a 45 zone, I pulled the massive F-250 directly into his lane, blocking the road. Julian slammed on his brakes. The Porsche's carbon ceramic discs shrieked like a banshee as the tires locked up, smoking against the asphalt. He stopped with less than 5 feet between his sleek hood and my steel brush guard. Through the windshield, I saw him throw his hands up, his mouth moving angrily. He laid on the horn. I didn't move. I sat behind the wheel of my matte black truck, staring at him. The tint on my windows was too dark for him to see my face. Julian revved his engine, trying to intimidate me. When I didn't budge, he threw his hands up in disgust, shifted into reverse, and pulled into the oncoming lane to go around me. The moment his rear bumper cleared my truck, I slammed my foot on the accelerator. The heavy diesel engine roared. I surged forward, cutting the wheel hard to the left, and slammed the reinforced steel bumper of the F-250 directly into the rear quarter panel of the Porsche. Crunch. The impact spun Julian's sports car out. He overcorrected, the Porsche fishtailing violently before the traction control caught it. He stabilized the car, shooting a terrified look into his rearview mirror. I hit the high beams, blinding him. I floored it, closing the gap instantly. I didn't ram him again. Not yet. I just sat on his bumper, my massive steel grille filling his entire rearview mirror. We were going 60. Then 70. Julian panicked. He floored the Porsche, the twin-turbos spooling up, trying to outrun me. He was fast, but the mountain road was treacherous. He couldn't open it up without risking flying off the edge. I stayed with him. He swerved left, I swerved left. He swerved right, I shadowed him. I was recreating the exact nightmare he had put my family through. I watched him in his cabin. He was frantically checking his phone, probably realizing he had no signal. He was trapped in a metal box with a monster on his tail. I wondered if he felt the cold sweat on his back. I wondered if he felt his heart trying to batter its way out of his ribcage. We approached the stretch of road I had scouted. The rock wall on the right, the sheer drop on the left. Julian tapped his brakes, trying to slow down to take the upcoming hairpin turn. I didn't slow down. I accelerated. Boom. I slammed into the back of his Porsche. The fiberglass bumper shattered. The impact jolted him forward. He screamed, I could see his mouth open wide in terror. He tried to brake again, harder this time. I hit him again. I put the massive weight of the F-250 against his trunk and I pushed. His brakes were screaming, smoking, desperately trying to stop the 8,000-pound behemoth pushing him toward the hairpin turn. But physics was against him. He was a lightweight sports car. I was a freight train. I pushed him past 60. Past 70. We were flying toward the curve. He realized he wasn't going to make the turn. He realized his brakes were useless against my momentum. He whipped his head around, looking back at me, his face pale, his eyes wide with absolute, primal horror. With 50 yards to the turn, I slammed the brakes of the truck. The ABS engaged, my heavy tires biting into the asphalt, smoke billowing around me. I slowed the truck down, breaking contact with the Porsche. Julian's car shot forward, carrying way too much speed. He cranked the steering wheel, trying to drift the corner, but the tires had no grip left. The Porsche skidded sideways, skipping across the asphalt. It slammed into the steel guardrail. The rail groaned, bending outward, but it held. The Porsche ground against the metal, a deafening screech of tearing fiberglass and aluminum, sparks showering the canyon. The car spun 180 degrees and came to a violent, shuddering halt against the rock face on the opposite side of the road. Steam hissed from the crushed radiator. I pulled the truck to a stop 20 feet away. I threw it in park. The silence of the mountain returned, broken only by the ticking of the cooling engines and the hiss of steam. I picked up the heavy steel lug wrench from the passenger seat. I grabbed my cane. I kicked my door open and stepped out onto the asphalt. My bad leg throbbed, a sharp, stabbing pain, but I ignored it. I leaned heavily on the cane, dragging my right leg slightly as I walked toward the wrecked Porsche. Julian was slumped over the steering wheel. The airbags had deployed. As I got closer, I saw him groan and shift. He pushed the deflated airbag away, clutching his chest. Blood was trickling down from a cut on his forehead. He looked up through the shattered driver's side window. He saw me. At first, it was just confusion. He saw a man with a cane. But then, as he looked at my face, recognition dawned. He remembered the eyes that had stared at him through the broken window of the Explorer. He remembered the man whose throat he had tried to crush. "You," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Oh God, you." I didn't say a word. I just stood there, the cold mountain wind whipping at my jacket. I looked at him. I looked at his expensive polo shirt, his imported leather seats. I thought about Sarah, trapped in a bed, her legs useless. I thought about Lily, screaming in the dark. Julian started to panic. He scrambled backward in the seat, trying to open the passenger door, but it was pinned against the rock wall. He was trapped. "Listen, man," he screamed, his voice cracking. "Listen. I'm sorry. I panicked. You rammed me. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. I'll pay you. I'm rich. I can give you whatever you want. Millions. Just name it." He was crying now. Genuine, pathetic tears. I raised the steel lug wrench. "No. No, please, he begged, holding his hands up to protect his face. Please. I have a life. I have a family. So did I said. My voice was a rasp, dead and hollow. I swung the wrench. I didn't hit him. I brought the heavy steel tool down onto the A-pillar of the Porsche, right next to his head. The metal buckled with a deafening crack. Julian shrieked, covering his ears. I stepped back. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. I hit record. I pointed the camera at his bloodied, terrified, crying face. Say cheese, asshole, I said. Julian stared at the camera, sobbing, shaking uncontrollably, his bladder letting go, soaking the expensive leather seats. I stopped the recording. I put the phone back in my pocket. Then, I reached through the broken window. Julian cowered, waiting for the blow. But I didn't hit him. Instead, I grabbed the collar of his shirt and hauled him forward. I leaned in close, so close I could smell the stale alcohol on his breath from the night before. You're not going to die today, Julian, I whispered. His eyes widened in shock. Death is too easy. Death is a release. You're going to live. I tightened my grip on his collar. But you're going to live knowing that I am out here. Every time you start a car, you're going to wonder if I cut the brake lines. Every time a car pulls up behind you on the highway, you're going to look in your rearview mirror and wonder if it's me. When you go to sleep in your high-rise, you're going to wonder if I'm standing at the foot of your bed. I let go of his shirt. He slumped back into the seat, trembling like a leaf. If I ever see your face on the internet again. If I ever hear your name in the news. If I ever find out you've driven faster than the speed limit, I leaned in, my voice dropping to a deadly whisper, I won't use my truck next time. I'll use a claw hammer. And I'll start with your spine. I backed away from the car. Julian didn't move. He just sat there, broken, hyperventilating, entirely destroyed. The arrogant day trader who threw a tire iron into a family's car was gone. In his place was a paranoid, hollowed-out shell. I walked back to my F-250. I climbed in, threw the wrench onto the floorboard, and shifted into reverse. I backed away, turned the massive truck around, and drove back down the mountain, leaving him alone in the freezing morning air. A week later, I was sitting in the hospital courtyard, pushing Sarah in her wheelchair. The autumn sun was warm, casting long, golden shadows across the pavement. Lily was sitting on Sarah's lap, babbling happily, holding a small plush bear. Sarah looked down at our daughter, a small, sad smile on her lips. It was the first time I had seen her smile in 2 months. She stroked Lily's hair, then looked up at me. You look different, Mike, she said softly. The tension in your shoulders. It's gone. I'm just glad you're out here in the sun, I replied, leaning down to kiss the top of her head. Did the police ever call? She asked, her voice tight. About the man who did this? No, I lied smoothly, the truth locked away in a dark, cold box in my mind. They didn't. He vanished. Sarah closed her eyes, letting out a long sigh. Maybe it's for the best. I don't think I could face a trial. I just want to move forward. I just want us to be a family again, whatever that looks like now. We are, I said, crouching down next to the wheelchair, taking her hand in mine. We're going to figure this out. I promise you, Sarah. Nobody is ever going to hurt you again. Lily dropped her plush bear. I picked it up and handed it back to her. She looked at me, her big blue eyes bright and clear, the scar on her cheek fading into a faint silver line. She grinned, revealing 2 tiny front teeth. Dada, she said. The sound broke me. A tear slipped down my cheek, hot and heavy. I pulled them both into a hug, burying my face in Sarah's shoulder, the smell of her shampoo cutting through the sterile hospital air. We were broken. We were scarred. But we were alive. Later that night, after I put Lily to bed and helped Sarah settle into her medical bed, I walked out to the garage. The heavy steel F-250 was gone, sold for scrap to a yard 3 counties over, melted down into unidentifiable slag. I sat at my workbench. I opened a small, encrypted thumb drive and plugged it into my laptop. I clicked on the only video file saved on the drive. It was the video I had taken on the mountain. Julian Croft, bloodied, crying, begging for his life in a puddle of his own urine. I watched it once, just to remind myself that monsters bleed just like the rest of us. Then, I hit delete. I ejected the drive, placed it on an anvil, and smashed it to pieces with a hammer. I swept the plastic shards into the trash, turned off the garage lights, and walked back inside my home. The house was quiet. The doors were locked. And for the first time since the interstate, I finally slept.